Well, a couple of summers ago, I wanted to go to one of those remote places called McGregor Bay. It's at the far east end of the North Channel. And for a boat that averages about 6 miles an hour, it took us several days to actually get there. Now, I should tell you that not many people go to McGregor because it's a dangerous place. One reason it's a dangerous place is that it's not exactly a bay in the traditional sense. Rather, it's this complicated, convoluted maze of waterways. The nautical charts are all not helpful. I have one chart that I use that I rely on that was hand-drawn in 1956 and includes instructions like go between the rock and the bush. Now, I gotta tell you, I've been at that point, and the rock is still there, of course, but so is the bush. And going between them is a breathtaking experience. So you can't even rely on your GPS because it's not accurate enough. Your GPS would tell you that you're in deep water right after you've run aground. So there's only one thing you can do, only one way to navigate in and navigate out. You have to drop your sails, turn on your engine, and rely on the visuals. But even that's a challenge. So this is not one of those well-timed photographs of a seagull about to land. Rather, that bird is standing on a submerged boulder, a boulder just waiting to punch a hole in the hull of your boat. But I gotta tell you, it was totally worth it. I had never seen a place like this before. It was majestic, and we had it all to ourselves. The weather was perfect. My son and I are catching fish right off the bow of our boat. And we were having so much fun that we decided to stay an extra day, and then another day, and another day. And we stayed one day too long. So the day of our departure, my wife and I got up really early, and I went to start the engine. Click, 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 click. Dead batteries. The engine won't start, and we are stranded in paradise. Now, I'm going to tell you, a situation like this really concentrates your mind. What are we going to do? Eventually, our son woke up, and he said, "Hey, Dad, I thought we were leaving early today." I said, "Yeah, me too." And I explained, what had happened. I said, "Don't worry." But I was worried. I was really worried. I realized that we had enough food, and it was good weather out. We had a dinghy. I thought, maybe I could take that dinghy with a 6-horsepower engine, take it all the way to the nearest town, get a battery, and come back. Well, I did some calculations, and I realized that was going to take about 18 hours round trip, assuming I didn't get lost or run out of gas. So that's not a good idea. So I'm racking my brain, and I'm thinking, and then I had an idea, a good idea this time. I remembered Roy Eaton. Roy is a Canadian who spends the summer on Manitoulin Island in a village called Little Current. We had passed it on the way to McGregor. And every morning at 9 o'clock, he has a radio program for mariners. We listen to it on our marine radio. And he reports the news and sports and, of course, the marine weather. And I remembered that he starts each session the same way. Is there any emergency, medical, or priority traffic? I got something. Well, I had just enough juice left in the batteries to power the marine radio, and at 9 o'clock, I called in. I explained our situation. He calls back and asks for my coordinates. So I give him our position, our latitude and longitude, and then the batteries are really dead. The radio has stopped working, and I have no idea if help is on the way. Hours go by, and I am getting really desperate, really desperate. And then, on the horizon, I see a boat, and it's slowly working its way towards us. I can tell it's a sailboat. Its sails are down, and it's under power, of course. And when they get close, I realize I have never seen this boat before. I don't recognize the people on the boat. Complete strangers have come to our rescue. Now the captain pulls his boat around to my starboard side, and he drops anchor. And I'm standing in the bow of our boat, and I said, "I am so happy to see you." I should tell you, I fly a big Block M at the top of my mast. And the very first thing he said to me, the very first thing, "You're flying a Michigan flag." I found out later, he's from Ohio. Well, his name is Harvey. And Harvey's a really great guy. He had spare batteries on his boat. He brought them over, helped us get our engine started, and he even stayed in radio contact with me as I worked our way back. And I said to my wife and my son, you know, I am so grateful that let's go all the way back to Little Current, and I'm going to ask Roy to be on his show and give a big shout out of gratitude to the entire boating community. So that's what we did. We went all the way back to Little Current. We got in really late at night. We docked. I plugged in the shore power. And just before 9 the next morning, we went to Roy's studio. Roy was delighted, thrilled to see us because he didn't know what had happened. And I asked him if I could be on his show to give a big shout out to Harvey. And of course he said yes. And then he started his session the same way. Is there an emergency, medical, or priority traffic? There was. A skipper called in and said that he had just learned that a member of his crew was severely allergic to bees and had forgotten this: an EpiPen. So an EpiPen contains synthetic human adrenaline. It's an emergency treatment for severe allergic reactions like anaphylaxis. And I remember Roy just looking down and muttering, EpiPen, what's an EpiPen? And he looks up, and our hands are up, because my son has a severe peanut allergy, and we have half a dozen EpiPens on our boat at any time. And so we very gladly left one with Roy. Roy radioed the skipper and said, come on into port and pick it up. And because of that, that crew member was able to continue his trip with peace of mind, knowing that he wasn't going to die from a bee sting. Now, my talk is not about sailing. I tell you this story because it illustrates a fundamental human principle called paying it forward. Harvey comes to our aid and assistance, and I am really grateful, and I want to pay it forward, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to help someone else. Here's another example, a kidney chain. I like this one because it was started by Matt Jones from Petoskey, Michigan, and Matt wanted to change someone's life for the better. And he did so by donating one of his kidneys to a stranger. That stranger turned out to be Barbara, who lived in Phoenix and who was dying from kidney disease. Now, her husband, Ron, would have donated one of his kidneys, but they didn't have compatible blood types. But he was so grateful that he paid forward one of his kidneys to another stranger, Angela, whose mother was so grateful that she paid forward one of her kidneys to someone else. And on it went, a giant pay-it-forward kidney chain driven by gratitude.